Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. We've got a fun show on deck for you all today. Every show's fun. But today, even more so, as we get to kind of stretch our legs, Justin, and cover some ground that we don't get to cover necessarily throughout the regular season. But you've been a world traveler out in New York and, doing everything, catching some Army Duke basketball last night, supporting the cousins. Damn, you got some tall cousins, man. One of them here at SLU as well. How's life been?
Life's been good. Crazy last 4 days. Did New York City, and then got down to West Point. For anybody that hasn't been, I doubt many people have been. It is awesome. I would highly recommend it. Just getting to West Point, we got a tour of it. Got a better understanding of what my cousin Tate. He's a center on the Army basketball team. What he does on a day-to-day basis outside of basketball, it's absolutely absurd. When you get in trouble and the things that you have to do and walking the line and all of these things, it's quite a treat. So I would definitely recommend getting up there. But then, yeah, shout out to his older brother, Andrew, that was up there with me. He played basketball at Penn, and his younger brother, Luke Lashkowski, that is on the SLU men's basketball team right now. So the boys are riding high. It was a tough one against Duke, as expected. I won't talk about the score, but it was really fun to watch.
Just watch the first 5 minutes or so, because that's all you really needed. That's Justin. That's all I watched, and I was like, "This is gonna be a game. This is gonna be a game." Like Army was stretching the floor, going balls to the wall. This game was just built on transition. It was really really fun to watch, but super cool for Veterans Day as well.
And it was for Veterans Day. They did something for Coach K, who obviously played at Army and coached at Army. Coach Useski and had 5 national titles at Duke, so he was the one that put it on. It was awesome. Duke left their starters in until 4 minutes left, and that's how they put up 65 points in the second half on Army. So you're not going to win many if you do that, but shout out to Andrew, Tate, and Luke for doing it big in D1 basketball. It's been fun to watch.
No, absolutely. I've been enjoying watching SLU, Justin. We've been keeping everyone apprised on everything SLU, men's and women's soccer, the last couple weeks and months, and we've got one to take off the list, unfortunately, Justin. And I frankly, surprised, because I think you and I last week talking about the SLU women, such good form finishing the season, such good form in the A10 for the last years, just dominance. But they fell 4-2 against Rhode Island this past Wednesday at Herman in the afternoon. It was a super entertaining, competitive match from what I picked up. But one of those games where, like Rhode Island here in this example, their goalkeeper just had more saves in their locker. They had more, we had more shots on target. So you can argue what stats you care about that really, tell the story of the game. But, we went up, went down 2-1, equalized 2-2, and conceded 2 more goals in the final 15 to lose this game. Rhode Island then went on to the final against Dayton, where they lost in PKs. So we finished the season 14-4-2. Not a bad season at all, even by SLU women's standards, but definitely a bummer to go out in that manner to a team that you'd already beaten earlier on in the season.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Jake. I remember because we were up there, and actually Army's team, they just won the Patriot League for the first time and going back to the tournament in 14 years. And they're actually matched up with Penn State, who is a team that took down the Bills earlier this season. It kind of made me think, I'm like, oh my God, did they make the selection? I was scrolling, and it was disheartening to see that. Obviously a tough season, but one that I bet you is just going to fire up Katie Shields and the ladies even more for next season. So keep an eye on them. And for anybody that's not already, you need to continue to keep an eye on the boys. The SLU men's soccer team, they are currently live on ESPN Plus against Davidson. They are up 1-0. They had a PK in the 29th minute, I believe it was. Maybe 29th minute, about 16 minutes left. You have to do that math backwards because they count down. So I was like, they were saying it. I was like, I just got home and I threw it on. I'm like, all right, yeah, it makes sense. So we're up 1-0 back at home. How did we get here, though? They had a 2-0 dub versus Sal on Friday, 11-7 at Herman. 9 clean sheets on the season and 4 saves for goalkeeper Jeremy Avondale. Waited until the 75th minute to open up the scoring, but had 21 total shots. So absolutely dominating LaSalle, and it's one that they needed because now they're rolling in hot in this tournament.
Dude, SLU is unbeaten in the last 8 matches. If you count this one, if they can get the job done, make it 9. Undefeated at home, 6-0-5. Again, you get the job done here, 7-0-5. They haven't lost a match since at Akron earlier on the season. I remember talking about that, Justin, because that was one of those games like the show me what you're going to be this year game. And, they couldn't pull it out. And Akron's a great side, obviously. They haven't lost at home. At Herman, again, barring tonight, all fingers crossed, right? They haven't lost at home since last year, 2024, in the opening round of the NCAA tournament against UMKC. So November 21st, almost coming up on actual calendar year. So that home form, incredible. They've round out the season in the top 25. RPI looking great, stats looking great. Justin, you need to make, I feel like, a good run in this tournament to really, I think, solidify, right, like your stance in the tournament. And if you win the tournament in the A10, I think you go into the real tournament with probably a pretty good bid as well. So things are looking up for these guys. Davidson, again, we're up 1-0. Well, by the time we finish, Justin, I'm sure the game will be done here, so we'll be able to celebrate, hopefully. But Justin, goalkeeping. You know I love it. We like to talk about it. We've had Tim Kelly on the show before. We always wax lyrically about Roman Berkey. But Jeremy Abano, who Coach Kalish came on and talked about, I think multiple times at this point this season in terms of the quality that he brings this team, talk to us about what he's got in his accolade locker for this season.
Dude, it's been absolutely insane. So being the goalkeeper of the year in the A10, we already mentioned he had 9 shutouts, first team all conference, back-to-back goalkeeper of the year for him as well. It shows you how strong he is. And he's all academic first team, and that is something that you love to see out of our SLU Billikens as well. So he led the league with his 9 shutouts, and then he was second in the A10 with a 0.65 goals against average. And Jake, you can't have that good of a player without also just as strong of a coach. And Coach Kalish, the coach of the year in the A10, this is his 3rd time as the coach of the year in the A10 as well. So want to give him a huge shout out because it's not easy. I mean, if you remember how many guys, I think he told us in preseason, they lost like 6 or 7 guys. And we're not talking bench players either. We're talking about true starters on this team. And this team has really shown out. And it's not something that you can just easily do. Just bring in a new crop of guys and have them play this well. So huge shout out to Coach Kalish and team.
Yeah, and you guys get to come on this podcast and have us welcome in a 3-time now winning A10 Coach of the Year just to talk a little bit of footy. So, I mean, come on. Congrats to Coach Kalish. Well deserved. And the boys, we hope this is not the end of the journey, and we'll keep you all posted on that. Sticking with the goalkeeper topic thread, we're going to go to a new topic and theme here, Justin, back to City. But Ben Lunt, Big Ben, is back with us through the next 2 seasons at least. So he'll be here with 2026 and 2027, signing his extension. Remember, I don't even believe he had an option, but he was out of contract, and they came out and said they were negotiating with him about coming back. So I think, Justin, that solidifies your goalkeeping union, right? You've got the same 3 that you've had since you were a club, right? You've got Berkey, obviously, number 1. Lune is number 2. And you've got Olivares, who we picked up the option for as well. So you've got your 1, 2, 3. That's probably not an area that Corey Wray has to worry about at all. And Lune, to his credit, I said on Twitter, Justin, I just from a goalkeeping kind of mindset, I can sometimes tap back into that. But from a backup goalkeeping mindset, I can also tap into that mindset as well, because it's not easy. It's not easy being out there doing all the drills with the team and pushing your guy, knowing that there's very little, very, very little chance that you get to cement your spot or get even a chance barring injury. You're doing all the runs with the team, and you just have to show up. And you got to tell yourself that, you're ready for that pin to drop, that moment to rise, and you're there for the taking. And he was. Ben Lunt had a great cameo for Roman Berkey being out this season with 9 starts, 2 clean sheets, and had an excellent performance, we all remember, against LAFC in that 2-2 draw back in April. So, to his credit, I think he earned it. He earned a serious look from the club to say, you know what? We're going to give you this as a reward for coming in and deputizing so well when we needed you. So I'm happy about it, Justin. It's, we think about, the succession plan and who's next after Berkey, right? Because we got to think about that life eventually. It's not Lund, right? But I guess for City, it's an area that they want to be done with and put that to bed. And we're pretty comfortable where we are.
Yeah, so Ben Lunt, Roman Berkey just turned 34. Ben Lunt is 30. He is our age, Jake. September 24th, 1995. This is a guy that I feel like, as you already mentioned, he's ready to step up into it. And he probably had some offers. If you look at it, the question is, it wouldn't have been offers from the MLS. I think if he was going to become a starting goalkeeper on one of these teams, he would win, obviously, right? So I think it would have been USL or one of those types of leagues, and I don't think he wanted to drop down. And I think he likes it here, so he didn't want to go back overseas or things like that either. And then obviously with Roman being 34, if you are truly the backup, there's a chance that he has a chance to show what he's got again this year. So I'm sure it was a difficult decision for him, but I'm happy to have another goalkeeper like that. And I think Christian Alvarez is going to be actually pushing for him as well in this spot. And I don't think it's going to be a just straight to Ben Lunt with 30-year-old, because to your point, Jake, we got to be looking towards the future. But it's a good problem to have for us right now.
Agreed. And you've also got Mekhi Joyner making the news as he makes the call for U21 U.S. Youth National Team camp That's his sixth call up. And perhaps this is probably the most important of his career so far, right? With the 20-player camp, 13 players have represented the US and FIFA Youth World Cups, and Joyner barely missed out on the U20 World Cup roster. So they're going to face the U21 Denmark side on the 14th in Denmark, followed by Serbia U21s in Serbia. So not only is Joyner with the squad, but he's with the squad in Europe, playing on European soil against, two good programs and testing himself with some of the best that, the U21 program has to offer. So, I still think, Justin, the verdict's out for me on Joyner. We know what he can do at certain levels, right? And we know that he can have flashes, great moments in MLS with the first team. We've never seen him get that extended run in the team. So I think that's why I said the verdict is still out. Like, what is his ceiling, right? Because we know his capabilities in MLS Next Pro and whatnot. If he keeps getting call-ups like this, there's some credence behind the hype, right? And you just want to see it make his way to the first team, because I really want to be talking about him a lot next season personally.
I think there's a good chance that we will. And I think it's a perfect segue, Jake. But the reason I think that he has a chance to be on the first team is Corey Wray. We talked about him multiple times, the new sporting director for City, and what he did when he was at Columbus, mainly usually growing that second team into the first team and really focusing on the academy and the youth and how you can make that homegrown so strong and that connection. So I think he's going to be a perfect segue and a path from Kai Joyner to be able to have more time with the first team and ultimately, hopefully, get into a starting role. Because to your point last year, I think it was just like a more trash time minutes. I think there was a couple games where we really got him in. Obviously, he's made his first ever start in the last game of the regular season. But for more often than not, it was just like, all right, we're either up by 2 or down by 2. Go out there and see what you got. So I'd like to see him give a little bit more from a meaningful minutes perspective. But perfect segue, as I already mentioned, Jake, into the Corey Wray presser. A couple quick comments and highlights on some of the quotes that he said we want to touch on.
Yeah, so this was now just a week ago, and we recorded right before this, so we weren't able to break it down. But I'll just pick and choose a couple different things, Justin, that stuck out to me, and you can do the same from some of his quotes. It was, again, our first time hearing from him in the seat, right, wearing the hat. And he started off, very, very hot in the first couple minutes, and winning was a theme in the very beginning. And I'll just pick a couple parts from this quote was, "I'm here to win. It's very clear through this process that this is an important part of what the fans are looking for. I think people are knowledgeable enough to see the progress, and that's what I hope we can show right away. But I'm here to win. I am a winner." A lot of mentions of winning here, Justin. Not something this team has been very used to in the last 2 seasons, nor these fans. But Corey's out here saying exactly those sweet nothings that we want to hear into our ears as fans. Now, you're hoping that he can back this up as well, but it's good to hear someone, come out and just say it too, right? A lot of people say everything but, like, we're here to build the culture, the community, and the academy, and he said all those things as well. But I feel like he did put a very big focal point into winning. Like, winning needs to be a part of what we do at this club, and it hasn't been here, and we're all smart enough to see it. So I'm going to bring that back.
Yeah. Do you think that he had a little birdie in zero from Patrick Schulte saying, "Hey, why don't you win a couple games and then my parents will call you," which is a nice little fun thing that he ended the whole thing with. But Jake, after he kind of got onto that, then he more focused on, all right, what am I going to do now that I am here? And the first thing he wanted to say is, first and foremost, I just got here. Like, I know everybody's excited and we're trying to get things rolling, but pump the brakes a little bit. But then he rolled into, yeah, I just got here, but now I'm going to get to work. And what am I really going to be looking at? And he said, I'm going to be looking at the roster. I'm going to be looking at the staff. I'm going to make sure I have a firm understanding of what we have internally. And then I will start a shared vision and direction going forward. He wants to set new standards of high performance on how we operate, communicate, and decisions. Jake, I thought that said volumes with just a short sentence right there of him saying, hey, there's a reason that you guys are at the bottom of the table, and that needs to be fixed. And it's not just the players that are on the field. It's a culture thing. I think we need to set our standards. We have our standards. We need to raise them. And that's what he's going to be looking to do. This is a guy that's very technical and data analytic driven. And he's going to be looking at everything extremely analytically and then trying to focus on how we can raise the bar as a whole as a club.
Yeah, I want to hit the analytics really quick, Justin, because he talked about data, came out and just said it too. He said, when it comes to using data, I'd say I'm data informed, making sure we are using it, but using it in the right place in the process and using it to make our traditional scouting and our other processes better. I love that role for data, right? It's not necessarily data driven, data led, but it's that we know data, we know how to use data, and we will use it to augment everything that we do operationally and from a scouting perspective is why I like that. You and I were expecting to hear that from him. And it also, he came out and just said too, what sort of levers he's looking at pulling. both in the short term and the long term. He talked about DPs. He talked about, how we'll want to use reentry drafts, free agency, super drafts. He came out and just said, in the short term, we're going to need to do a few things to become more competitive. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And that's out of his mouth, not mine. So again, look for us to be very active in these basically next 6 or 7 weeks prior to the new year, because you'll have super draft there, you'll have reentry, you'll have free agency open up. So we're going to be pretty active, I feel like, in these next couple of weeks. Again, it's new to him in terms of this role, but he's got to get ingrained quickly because there are some opportunities to improve the squad. And I think, Justin, we talked about stabilizing, being competitive. This doesn't mean that, this year in 2026 is the end goal, right? This is a stepping stone. This is let's take a step forward from 2024, 2025, and let's be competitive on the pitch in as many games as possible. Because if you can be competitive throughout a season, you're probably going to make the playoffs, just where the bar is set, honestly. But he also talked about DPs too, Justin, because his hands are kind of tied. On the DP front, right? With Berkey now being a DP, obviously Hartel still as well, and us having 4 U22s at the moment. So DPs he talked about just in that kind of cautious tone of, we need to be getting the right DP versus just going out to get a DP. And he also didn't stutter. He said, I'm confident there's a desire to win from ownership, and they're committing to resourcing that how we see fit. But again, Justin, for me, I feel like 2026, the word we're going to hear a lot is like stabilize. Like, let's stay in this. Let's build a product that's entertaining, that's fun, and that's the start of this, City 3.0, whatever you want to call it. And I think Corey's going to be the one to usher that in.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that he's also going to be focusing on, Jake, obviously, is the elephant in the room of who's our head coach going to be. And I've seen a lot of people start to be like, all right, it's kind of quiet around here. Like, no, it's only been a week or so. So let's pump the brakes, because this is not going to be something where he's just like, yep, this is our guy. And the main thing I love about this as well, very similar to him talking about the processes and raising our standards, he said they have to be a good person, and the character of that person is going to be paramount. I'm going to be working with this person for many hours a day. If you don't have someone with a high character and a good person, we stop the process there. That's non-negotiable. I agree with him. That is step one. It doesn't matter who you have, because what was the, wow, I can't believe it just popped in my head. Pochettino's quote that he put up on the board a couple weeks ago, something about hard work beats talent. It's something nature, very similar in this aspect, Jake. And I'll look this up on the side here in a sec. But it really is that if you have the right people that you work with, that can go much further than just having the smartest people in the room. And I think that's fun. And if you want to put this just for anybody in everyday life, I love it. They asked me this whenever I was doing my internship with Ernst & Young. They're like, you have to think about it like the airport test. If you're going to get on a flight with somebody at 7 p.m. and they cancel it and there's no more flights the next morning and you're just stuck with this person at the airport, are you going to be okay with that? And that's the type of person you want to be with, is like someone that's truly a nice human being, not someone that's going to be standoffish, think they're better than you and whatnot. And I think that's really what this club needs.
Dude, for sure. I love that. I had the similar analogy, like the elevator. Like, can you survive a minute elevator ride with this person, or be stuck in an elevator for a while with them and not want to kill them when you get out, right? Like, it's great to have hard skills. It's great to be a great scout. It's great to have a good eye for the game and a good eye for your philosophy and how you want to approach it. But like, if you suck, like, I don't want to work with you like for years, right? Because we're building something together. Like, we have to be in the trenches. There'll be some ugly freaking days, dude. Believe me. I know there's a lot of good stuff ahead, but there'll be a lot of pain as well for Corey Wray and whoever this coach is. And you'd rather have that person, be someone that you just like as a person and that you respect, because you can build from there, right? You can grow together with that as a foundation, whereas you can't if they're just crappy. And we've heard some less than stellar things about our former manager in Olaf Melberg. So I think this would be a refreshing turn to have and I think, Critchley as well was a very likable guy. You'd hope that he probably personifies some of those traits that Corey is looking for. Maybe not the exact fit, right? But I think those vibes probably more along that path than like an Olaf Melberg, Justin. But before we close this out with the presser, the last thing I wanted to say on him was, you and I talked about this too, was the pathway. He did such a great job in Toronto and in Columbus, making sure that, there was a solidified path to get from your academy all the way up to your first team. And he helped players walk that path, right? And lay it out for them and show them, what things you need to hit to get there. And we saw those products in Columbus, and we still are seeing them in Columbus today. So, the comment he made was, when I'm taking a decision to trade for or acquire a player, we have to make sure we've done all the internal work to project out when the pathway is set for the next player in that position. We don't want to block that player. Justin, let's bring it back to Joyner, for example. Everyone, I feel like if you polled the City fan base on, any various social media outlets, people would probably scream the loudest for a sexy striker or like a really incredible winger, right? Like just those really fun plaster the wall signings, and for him, I think there's a balance there of like, yep, that'd be really cool at the right price. That'd be great. But you also need to look about trade-offs and you say, okay, well, we have this Makai Joyner, who is supposed to be one of our best developmental prospects, hopefully our biggest hope of getting a true academy guy into the first team on a starting basis. What does that do to his minutes? Do we need to think about a loan for him? How long is this contract going to be ahead of him? How do we successfully kind of integrate these players into the squad and not constantly just block them and their way into the team? So it's that holistic view of development and like not just making decisions that just improve you on the field, but doing that with a consideration for how you improve those that are already in your walls, right, as well. And so again, that's the right things to say. We'll see how it personifies on the pitch and in the offices, but I think it's so important. You see these big clubs just throw money at players all the time when they invest so much money in their academies, and you see those academy guys get shipped off and they go make names for themselves somewhere else.
Absolutely. I think it's one that he needs to be focusing on what's in his walls, not throwing money everywhere else. And so does everybody else, Jake. Remember what's in your walls. And if you haven't already, call Hoffman Brothers at 314-664-3011. If you thought that little cold front was going to be enough, yeah, we're going to get up into the 70s. Then we're going to dip back down. We haven't even seen freezing yet. So do not wait for your heating to go out. It's going to come. So either call them at 314-664-3011 or visit them at Hoffman Bros, HOFFMANN bros.com, because Jake, you do not want to be throwing money out the door when it's too little too late.
I'm not, Justin. I got Hoffman coming tomorrow, thankfully. So they're doing a little tune-up on the furnace. Before we get into like the real, we had like the false winter beginning, and now we have that little reprieve that we get right before real winter finally settles in. So winter has come. Which is why you see the subject for this episode. It definitely is arriving here. But for us, Justin, we've got some news as well that has come our way today. So late breaking, but I think enough for us to react to, and we'll know a lot more tomorrow. But the Board of Governors is convening tomorrow in Florida for MLS. And just think about the Board of Governors. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to you and me as fans, but it's those that carry weight in the MLS conversations where this league is going. It is owners, right, at the table here discussing the future of this league. And there are two major things on the docket, not necessarily for votes guaranteed, but at least for discussion. I think one more likely for a vote maybe than the other. But the first one, Justin, we've already put some stuff about this, and we will more so right after this, is barring any last minute sort of snags with the MLS Players Association. It's my understanding, and this is from reporting from Tom Bogert and Paul Tenorio on The Athletic, is that the Board of Governors is expected to pass the fall-spring calendar change to align with many top European leagues for MLS. So break it down for you. The schedule for MLS in this new format would be mid to late July or August as a starting point, and going to April, with playoffs really being held within the month of May, with a winter break from the second week in December to about the first or third week in February. They're really trying to avoid the Super Bowl, is what I glean from that, obviously. But late breaking idea for me, Justin, what if we did like Super Bowl's held and then Super Bowl weekend, right? That's what they dub it. It's a full weekend of events. Everyone's hyped up for it. How about Super Bowl weekend right after that, and get MLS kicked off again for the second half of the season? That's my idea. Don't take it from me, MLS. And then there'll also be a summer break too, as well, in June and July. So a break in the holidays kind of time frame, in the coldest time of the year for most places in the U.S., right? And then there's a summer break as well for the hottest time of the year for most places in the U.S. So Justin, pro, cons, plenty of them, obviously, but where do you sit in this?
I like it. And I think the easiest way for people to kind of get it is, Jake, think about it like a school year. That's how I was just telling Danny. Yeah. Like, it's a little bit different than a school year. Like your school year usually starts early August, probably when the MLS could start. You're probably going to have your Christmas break here, a little bit longer than a Christmas break. You come back and then you're going to finish up. And you're going to go a little bit longer than when the school year does. And you have those playoffs in May, or maybe even into a little bit of June and whatnot there. So I'm a big fan of it. I really do think that it makes the most sense. I'm intrigued to see how it kind of shakes out and how that transition would go. The most frustrating thing for me, Jake, is that we could have done this year when the World Cup is happening. It literally would have worked perfect because the World Cup starts on June 11th. We could have been done by then. And I don't know why they wouldn't have thought about this when the World Cup was announced in the U.S. like 5-6 years ago. So that would have been great. But hindsight 2020, we're moving forward. We're still up and coming. We're growing. But I would love for us to be on a different cycle, because I'm completely fine with not being at City Park in July.
Yeah, right. And I think two
Energizer
big
Park. God
right. Yeah. No, it's only been 1 year of that, by the way. It just was over a year they've announced that.
damn.
You're still within the window, in my opinion, Justin. Two main pros come to mind for me on that. Obviously, business sense. If we're lining up with the other major European countries, that's where we as a club have probably gotten most of our players from the outbound, at least from the inbound perspective, at least. So looking at more free transfers that you might line up with that you'll be able to sign pre-contracts on and negotiate with prior to those contracts coming up in the latter part of the year. And there's more value for them, right? Like Justin, like we get these mid-season signings and there's like 7 games left. And it's like, okay, what's the value, right? Because they're here for such a short time and they're a rental if they're like a loan, for example, versus if we negotiate with these people and we do most of our business in the summer, right? We're having more of that long-term thought on these signings, right? These players don't come in at a weird middle part of the season, like mid to latter part of the season. So big plus, in my opinion, from a business standpoint, both incomings and outgoings. Now, also playoffs, Justin. I think this is big for playoffs because I think right now they deal with this thing where the MLS Cup is, playoffs are both disjointed because the international window falls right in the middle of it after you finish round one, which is crazy. For example, Vancouver and LAFC both wrapped up their round one matchups on the 1st and 2nd of November. They're not playing until 11/22. 3 weeks after they finished up their last game. So very like stop start for a playoff atmosphere, not going to do well. So as a product, they're going to play these games in May, no longer against football, right? We're not going to compete against college football or NFL for eyes or eyeballs on this, MLS Cup playoffs. And we're not going to be disrupted by FIFA international windows like we are right now. I think a net positive when you think about the game, your product at its peak, right? When it really matters most. I think the league will have a better idea of where fans kind of put their attention when it comes to this time of the year because again there's not as much going on in the sports landscape at that time, and hopefully again when everyone's humming, everything on the line, trophies, hardware, money, you want fans, you want eyeballs on the TVs watching that, and I think you stand a much better chance with having that going on in May versus right now.
Absolutely, because I think right now you're also battling against the NFL,
Right.
college football, college basketball, the NBA, the NHL, all of this. So it's going to be tough. And I will say, Jake, if we're looking at playoffs, I guess you would kind of have hockey and NBA there, but it's
Yeah,
like
you would.
it's
Yeah.
June, it's baseball. Like at some point, you just got to also kind of step up against the big leagues.
I like that. I want to hit that, Justin. I like you said it because I also think people are like, well, hold on, because like now this season is the start would be all along the NFL pathway, basically. That we'd be competing the whole first half of the season with them. And so at some point, I'm kind of just like, I know that we're not the NFL, we never will be, most likely, but like you got to step up. You know what I mean? At somewhat, you have to compete. The only way to surmount and to gain is to show that you belong in that landscape and carve out your own niche as well. So, like, I think at some point you do kind of grow a pair and see where you stack up.
And we're not doing Thursday night games, and we're not
Right.
doing Sunday day games. Yeah, you have Sunday night soccer. I think that's a fair one to try to step up against the NFL. I mean, if you want to throw more on Saturday, not just make them all Saturday night, we've been clamoring for that because I'd love some more some more day games. Shit, Jake, throw them on a Friday as well. Let's do a
Yeah.
little short rest here and there. So I am intrigued to see how it all shakes out, but I think it's all positive for us.
No, I agree. And so the second thing we haven't even talked about yet is what's also part of this. So that one we expect to be voted on. Justin, I'd be shocked if we're talking next week and this hasn't been agreed to and in place, probably getting to a spot where it's in place for 2027, which is what they've touted as the timeline there. The second thing they're discussing, which is more interesting to me right now, because it's just kind of fun to think about, is they're going to reformat, how they structure the league. So when I say that, we're in 2 conferences right now, right? The East and the West are so different, right, in terms of the playoff line this year. But they would do away with the conferences, screw the West and the East. We're going to do 5 divisions of 6 teams, is what's being talked about, and organizing those divisions geographically to where 6 teams per 5 divisions. So each team will play each other in your division, home and away. So that will be your 10 games of the season, of the 34-game season. The other 24 matches, you will play every other team in the league, either home or away. So, Justin, no more seasons of like, will Messi come to town this year? You know what I mean? It's we'll play Messi every year in this type of format if he stays on long enough, because we'll either play home or away. And we'll play our rivals in our intra-division games, twice. So home and away. So, Justin, we mocked it up. we've kind of put together what we think these divisions would shake out in terms of, these matchups. And Justin, I love where it lands for us. Not from I think it's easy, but to have more matches against your Sportings, your Chicagos, your FC Cincinnati's, your Columbus. Justin, talk us through these divisions and kind of where your head is at on how we would structure this and how big of a departure it is from where we are today.
Yeah, so if anybody that can't see this visually, we'll put it out on Instagram because it's kind of cool to see how this is going to shake out. But I truly think this is probably the only way to do this, Jake. So we'll start on the West Coast. We'll go with the Northwest. That's where you're going to have your Vancouver, your Seattle, and your Portland. Obviously, that's about as north and west as you can get. And then you're going to go down a little bit and take a couple of those California teams. You're going to go with the Earthquakes, the LA Galaxy, and LAFC. Then you're going to move to the Southwest. That's where San Diego comes in from California. But then you're looking RSL, Colorado Rapids, and then the three teams in Dallas, FC Dallas, or three teams in Texas, FC Dallas, Austin, and Houston. Then you're getting to the Midwest, and that's where we are, and that's where you were already mentioning it, Jake. Us, Sporting Kansas City, Minnesota, Chicago, Cincy, and Columbus. Then if you want to look at the Southeast, a little bit of a hodgepodge here when you think about new teams, old teams, things of that nature. DC United, Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, Orlando, and Miami. And then the Northeast is just all those teams that get shoved up there. That's where my geography gets a little bit lost when you get all those little states that are the size of isn't Rhode Island like the size of a Disney World parking lot? So you get up there and you got Toronto, Montreal, Red Bulls, Union, New York FC, and the Revs.
Yeah, I mean, I am so about this. And the only thing we've heard about this is it's not like it's going to shake up necessarily the so what when it comes to the playoffs. From what, again, we've heard so far, this is early days, that those division winners would be guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. However, those should have already probably guaranteed their own spot in the playoffs, even outside of that. So the actual division standings won't necessarily mean that much besides for the winners. But in terms of the talent and how these divisions stack up, Justin, I look at the parity, right? And you broke this down for us in terms of points accrued by each team this past season. I think we're in a heavier weight, division here if this is to shake out like this.
Yeah, so I did an average of all these, and I mean, to be fair, they all within a couple points here or there. But I think the thing that really stood out was, for anybody that can't see this visually, the Northwest, the Southwest, the Midwest, and the Southeast all had 4 teams make the playoffs. So all relatively strong. But then the Northeast, they had Philly and New York make the playoffs with 66 and 56 points. They need the Red Bulls, the Revs, Toronto, and Montreal all not make the playoffs. So that is what really stood out to me. But Jake, I think the one that is, we are in a strong one when you look at this, and we had 4 teams above 50 points, which so did the Southeast. But I think we're similar to the Southeast in that nature. But I really do think that a strong one, that it's not surprising to me what at all, and who would come out of the Southwest. Obviously, San Diego had a strong season, but then look at Austin, FC Dallas, RSL, Colorado Rapids, and Houston. I mean, when you have your last place team almost getting to 40 points in Houston, it's a very impressive little squad there for them.
No, I agree. I think this would be so fun. I am so pro the reorganization of the league. I think the conference thing, it just doesn't really matter. And we get screwed, dude. And not to say we wouldn't have bad playing times now, because we still would go to the West Coast and play your Seattles, Vancouvers, but only if it's the away game that season. It might be the home game that season. There'd be a lot less of it because we go play all of them right now on the Pacific Northwest. And I would love to go play your teams in the Northeast as well. Like we haven't, you and I made the trip to Boston last year for the Revolution, but we haven't played even some of these teams yet. So it'd be so much fun to be able to play every team in this season and not just wonder what it's like and how we would stack up against some of these teams. So you get a shot at every team, but you get to really develop some rivalries geographically. I think we would have a lot more beef with Chicago. Obviously, we have enough to start with Sporting, but even your teams like Columbus and Cincinnati, who have their own rivalry, you're keeping some really important sort of clashes and rivalries together and doing this way. And I think you're also encouraging the building of new ones as well, right? Because fans can get to these games. They're a lot more accessible, right? Like if you and I, we knew that, Minnesota, Chicago, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Kansas City were all twice in the docket per year. And those are all a quick kind of hop, skip, and a jump from Lambert. We could probably go to more games because there's just more opportunity.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it, Jake, because this is one, to your point, then you build those rivalries. I mean, do you remember when Chicago Fire tried to come out with that corny little video and that dude's like, hold me back, and there was like 7 of them outside? Like, no, then we can actually build upon something like that, and we can start to mess with Tom Barlow and those guys up there. So it's not just always talking about the people out in the furniture mart. on the other side of Missouri over there. So I am extremely excited for this, Jake. And I think to your point, everybody needs to remember that the other cool thing is that then you play every other team in the MLS at once the rest of the season, either home or away. So you're always playing everybody. You just get to play everybody that's closer to you twice.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Very pro this. And again, I don't know if this is as far along as the schedule change is at the moment. And part of this is also, from what it sounds like, they are going to rethink the playoff format, which I think is sorely needed. I would love to move the bar up a little bit here. And that's coming from a guy that his team hasn't made the playoffs in 2 years, right? Like, I just think there should be more about it, right? Because when it feels like everyone kind of gets in, there's not as much value to the regular season, right? Until it really starts to mean something. So I'm pro changing the divisions, the format. I'm pro changing the schedule, and I'm definitely pro changing the playoffs. So we'll keep you all posted. There's a lot to come on this topic. I think tomorrow, as this Board of Governors meeting will convene and hopefully make some movement that will impact the landscape for U.S. soccer or soccer in the U.S. moving forward in a world post 2026 FIFA World Cup. So, Justin, there's more going on in the MLS right now outside of these things as well. We got some new awards to chat about. Playoffs are obviously in full swing, but on pause with the international window.
Yeah, so I mean, the new awards, there wasn't a whole lot that came out since last we talked, but just kind of bringing all these in here because we had the Tristan Blackman as Defender of the Year earlier, but when we talked about it, we had Newcomer Year and Andre Schreier, no surprise there, even though Son was technically allowed to be a part of this with the amount of games that he played. So that was the only one there. Nick Haglund on Cincy was the Comeback Player of the Year. And then some new ones that were named was obviously Messi as MVP. Also, no shocker there whatsoever. And then Young Player of the Year, Alex Freeman for Orlando City, which I think is huge for him in his up and coming time with the U.S. men's national team and the World Cup upcoming.
For sure. I mean, Messi doesn't surprise anyone right at this point. He's just, that dude's a machine. It reminds me like the Albert commercial with the old ESPN commercials back in the day. Like, I'm not a machine. I'm Albert. Or I'm not a robot. I'm Albert. That anyone doesn't remember it, look it up. I probably just butchered it, but Albert just delivers a grade A acting performance in that clip. But the roster, Justin, is capped by, Alex Freeman makes it. Alex Freeman wasn't even on the radar of anyone before this season, had a breakout campaign with Orlando, who I think many thought would be much better than they actually ended up being this year. But he was one of those diamonds in the rough for them. And he's young. He's obviously the son of a former NFLer as well. So he's got athlete all over his gene pool. And he shows it in that right wing back spot. Justin, I think he's gone from not even on the radar to probably number one off the bench when it comes to depth at the right wing back position if we maintain our back three, back five situation, which I think Pochettino's going to. So, like, if you're looking at, I think right now what's going to happen with the U.S. is perfect segue into the U.S. conversation is I think if everyone's healthy, Poch probably tries to play Tim Weah at right wing back because we don't have the wingers anymore in that back three situation. So you might give him a go there and maybe give him cover with the central midfield. Now, if he's not ready to go or if he's not a great fit, people have talked about Des, but Des has been in and out, right? He hasn't really been a part of the national team picture recently. So if you're talking about what have you done for me lately, Freeman has been Poch's guy. He's been starting in big games. He's been around for the Gold Cup and for the recent friendlies. I think Alex Freeman will be on that plane, right? And the plane to a city in the United States, right? But him making the World Cup roster would be such a cool kind of quick succession of crazy development and activities to get him from point A to point B. And I couldn't give him more credit. I mean, for a young guy, what a journey.
Yeah, and Jake, before we go on to the U.S. men's national team, we do have give a quick shout out to Bradley Carnell for being the coach of the year. It's something that's definitely hard to swallow as a City fan. I think there's pros and cons to him leaving, but obviously you wish him the best, but you don't wish him to have this good of success directly after leaving. So coach of the year for Philadelphia Union, extremely strong year for him, and a very, very, very huge congrats to him and the team as they're making their way through the playoffs as well. So Speaking of the playoffs, Jake, here's what we got in the playoff picture. So give an update for everybody real quick. The next game will be Vancouver versus LAFC. That's on November 22nd at 8:30 p.m. Then we have two games on November 23rd. You first have Cincinnati hosting Miami, which I think is going to be an awesome game, Jake. You got a little Evander versus Messi there. That's at 4 p.m. And then at 6:45 p.m., you had Philadelphia Union and Bradley Carnell hosting New York City FC. I do not see that one being very competitive whatsoever. And then the last game on November 24th is at 9 p.m. San Diego versus Minnesota. I think we're going to see some fireworks in that one.
Dude, yeah, I think it's shaping up. I think my eyes immediately again drift to LAFC Vancouver because that's where my future is, my money future, not like my personal future with LAFC right now. So I'm looking at that. I think San Diego has all the tools to continue their run into a conference final, which would be pretty cool for an expansion team. And Cincinnati, Miami, you already talked about it, Justin. I don't need to really talk too much about Philly, NYC, but Cincy, Miami should be fireworks, right? Like both those teams have some serious characters. Suarez has served his suspension now. He'll be back and biting with a vengeance, right? And you've just got some great storylines in that one too. It's like your small mid market versus like your big mega market in Miami. Yeah, eyes are open, man. This has been fun to watch so far, catching some of these games. Again, I encourage you all. I know we're not here, in this tournament, but there is some good soccer being played and very, very meaningful soccer at that as well. So encourage everyone to kind of check back in if you've checked out a little bit, because there's still some big games going on.
Yeah, Jake, if you already said that your future, what'd you get them at? Plus 750?
Yeah.
Sadly, Jake, I think it's because they're up against Vancouver. They're plus 650. It has not moved much after moving on. So you got the Philadelphia Union at
I might double down.
Plus 330, Miami plus 400. Those are the two favorites. And then you got the Whitecaps plus 500 and San Diego plus 550. So
I might double. Thanks for that scoop. I hadn't even looked, but I feel good.
All right.
So Justin, let's talk US. Finish this out for us. So we're right kind of ahead of a couple of friendlies happening this week and over the next 7 or so days, as the US will take on Paraguay on the 15th on Saturday at 4 p.m. and then Uruguay on November 18th that is a Tuesday next week at 6 p.m. Both teams have booked their tickets to the World Cup in 2026. Uruguay obviously being one of, if not the best team to come out of CONMEBOL in South America. So, you're looking at those a little bit differently, right? Like Uruguay spanked us up in Copa, probably won a little bit of revenge there. And they're definitely going to be one that's kind of sniffing around some of the latter stages of the World Cup, most likely in 2026. Paraguay a little bit different, but do not overlook that team either. Justin, there were some big storylines in this roster, and we're not going to like read through the whole roster here, but I want to hit this because I think we are a little bit surprised to see there was a little bit more of a tryout vibe for some of these guys on the roster, where I think we thought Poach was going to go with, his guys, like the guys that he believes will be, again, donning the red, white, and blue when it comes time for that first group stage match. And to a certain extent, there's been some injuries, there's been some head coach firings, and he wants certain players to kind of get up to speed with their clubs and probably maintain good relations. But there's been some other calls that have just left a couple people perplexed, me being one, Justin, but I am as Gio Reyna has been brought back to the team after a long period away. Obviously, we talked tons about the drama that followed after the 2022 World Cup, which, Justin, by the way, feels a lot more recent than it actually was, which is crazy to think about. But Gio Reyna is back. Right now he's at Mönchengladbach, where he's not seeing the most amount of playing time in the Bundesliga. And that was the whole point of getting out of Dortmund. It's not happening for him necessarily at the club level. He's in a better spot now, but still not where you want him to be. And he's not that same young guy he was before. But clearly Poach has seen something that says, you know what? Maybe I take a flyer on him. We've seen some great things in a national team jersey from Gio Reyna. And what he did at the World Cup was obviously really tough, right, in terms of the vote that happened and his behavior and how he handled everything. But you want to see something happen for this guy, right? He was such a prospect. Everyone talked about him like the new golden boy for America. Is this his last chance to say, you know what? I may not be doing it at club level, but I can offer this team something totally different that no one else has.
I think I'm excited to have him back. Obviously, there's some issues there from a family perspective and everything. So if anybody doesn't remember that, please just go Google it. They'll do a better justice than us trying to recap it very quickly here. But Jake, I would say also on a positive note, Ricardo Pepi back in the mix after nearly a year. Did you see that stat from OptaJack earlier on? Ricardo Pepi has scored 3 result-changing goals in the second half or stoppage time of a Champions League game, tying Ronaldo and Sergio Aguero for the most in the history of the competition. And Ricardo Pepi has done it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the guy's got some level of ice in the veins, right? Like he's just got that clutch gene. And remember, Ricardo Pepi was the guy that they were doing when they dropped the jersey for the World Cup. He was part of the photo shoot and he didn't make the roster. And it was huge. It was groundbreaking. He's back. I expect him to be on the roster for the World Cup, but good to have him back on the national team picture. I know he's dealt with some injuries here and there, but a good player for PSV. Justin, who's not here, right? We mentioned there's some call-ups that we were a little surprised by. No Pulisic. He is missing due to a hamstring injury that he is now officially, I think, over with, but he's just back in training, and they want to get him good and comfortable at AC Milan, given he is their best player and their key player and having any sort of success this season. Weston McKennie as well, dealing with a new coach that, again, Pochettino, I think, is being sensitive to, trying to get him to get into those good graces, keep playing minutes at the club level. You're also missing Malik Tillman for injury, Chris Richards. We've got weird relationships with Crystal Palace, which I think is why Chris Richards isn't able to join us. Tim Weah, Anthony Robinson. I'm worried about the Anthony Robinson situation, Justin. He's been hurt for quite a while now, has barely played in the Premier League this season after being widely touted as probably one of the best, wing backs in the league, not just for the U.S. or best American, like in the Premier League. This guy has been one of the best defenders, especially in going north and south. So you want to see what this back five looks like with him in it. So there's a lot of people that are missing too, Justin. But again, it's a chance for guys that this is kind of it, right? Like we have no more camp until March. And that's the last camp before the World Cup. So if you're Gio Reyna, if you're anyone that's gotten these last minute call-ups or guys that, this might be your first call-up, God forbid, this is it. You need to go out there and seize it with all you have, because if you want to book your ticket, it's going to be done right here, right now, because there's a lot of first teamers, starters even, that are not here. So you need to earn it. And even you might just be earning a depth spot or just punching your ticket. But I think a lot of guys would bite your hand off for that.
Oh, absolutely, including Sergio Aguero. But no, wow, I just messed that up, did I?
Luis Suarez.
God, I was all over it, but it was in tip of my tongue, just for the stat that I just put up for Ricardo Pepi. But the one thing I want to say there too, Jake, is that these games are not just, I know they're friendlies and it's part of a camp. These are very important games. You look at Paraguay, they are ranked 39th in the FIFA World Cup ranking, so the lowest of these friendlies. But then, so that is on November 15th at 4 p.m. That is this Saturday at 4 p.m. And then you got to take on Uruguay, who's actually 15th in the world still currently. I feel like when we were growing up, it was wow, I'm absolutely butchering this now. But who was the guy with the flow that was on Uruguay? Florian, whatever.
I'll think of it. I know who you're talking about.
You think on it, but number 15 in the world still, and we're number 16 in the world. So this is going to be a perfect matchup for the guys. And this is not just going to be a cakewalk. So when you're in there, there's going to be guys on these other teams that are fighting for World Cup spots as well. So this is going to be extremely competitive. And I really hope that these guys get up here and actually take care of it. It's on the tip of my tongue, and it's going to piss me off that you're about to say it.
Diego Forlan?
Yeah.
That's
what I could not name another Uruguayan, but Cavani and like back then, but I'm talking about right now. But it's cool to see that these guys are going to be called up, these young guys, and let's see what they can do. To your point, on one of these last camps that's truly meaningful.
And remember, like we had the positivity, right? After this last camp where they drew Japan after kind of not really knowing who they were in the first half of the game that preceded that. And then they put out the back five that second half, and they played the back five against Japan, and things went much better for us. So I think we might have found a way to get the best out of the current player pool and up against sort of the time constraints we have. So I hope that, Pochettino sticks to that. And again, for these guys, like I can't imagine what's going through my mind in terms of the pressure and the expectation to say, the pressure, the expectation, but also just in the luxury of earning that call up and saying, you know what, that I have a legitimate chance. Pochettino, for one thing, people want to knock him for whatever. He has given a lot of guys an opportunity that I don't think many coaches might have given, especially to some of your MLS players. He's fair. He's democratic. If you fail to rise to the moment, rise to the occasion, and seize it by the throat and say, I'm going to be on that plane, you're going to have to take me off of it. I'm excited because I think you're going to see a hungry performance, right? Again, these are friendlies, but they are everything but when it comes to the mentality of every American player that's going to be donning and dressing up and getting some caps here. So I'm really excited, Justin, because we have some good players back and some of our better players back, like Balogun's back. Obviously, Haji Wright's back, Pepe's back, Luna. Like our forwards are intact. You've got, again, a midfield that has, for me, the large part is missing, right? So a lot of newer guys that maybe haven't played together, haven't gotten to be national team caps, like your Aiden Morris's, your Christian Roldan, who's really impressing right now in the U.S. jersey, and you got a defense that's trying to make through or make way for a back three, back five, and we haven't seen a lot of guys kind of shift through that yet. You do have Tim Ream back in the lineup, Justin. We love to see Timmy, STL native. Obviously, also Patrick Schulte getting the call up here as well. So 2 St. Louisans, we're proud of them. And I'm just excited, Justin. Again, I don't think you need to see like the finished product in these matches, but you do need to see a tenacity, like an unquenchable thirst to try to do everything you can to put your country in the driver's seat and throttle your way onto that roster.
And you already mentioned it. I'm going to say that this is the biggest camp for Gio Reyna, obviously by far. But 2 other guys I want to mention, I think it's going to be an extremely important camp for. One is Haji Wright. I feel like he's kind of been tiptoeing on that line of like, are you really going to be our guy? Can you like? He's never. I don't think he's ever going to be our starter for this team in the World Cup. But is he going to be the first guy off the bench? I think that's where we're rotating on. Is it Ricardo Pepi? Or depending on where we're putting Weah, are we going to slide him up? Is Sargent going to be in this? Whatever. So I think that's an important one for him. And then another one, almost more similar to a Gio Reyna, is Brendan Aronson. Is a guy that's always been in the camp, but has not been getting a lot of minutes. And I think this is one that he really needs to prove why he needs to be on this team, because I think he can be on the team during the World Cup. But if you want to get meaningful minutes, this is the time to do it. This is the team that's, I would say, probably like our B squad. Like, I'm not going to even give it a B- or a B+. I think it's truly just a flat B squad. And Brendan Aronson can show that he deserves to be part of the squad. So I think that's a very important camp for these guys.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's with the big boys out, the big guns out, like your Pulisic's, your McKennies, who steps up and cements their spot on this roster. So if anything, keep your eyes out for that and watch these games just for that, because you will see some of these guys make that jump and solidify their stance, probably as cover for some of your more household name starters. But again, I think a lot of people would still jump at that chance, even to be covered at a World Cup, a home World Cup at that. So we'll be watching. We'll break those games down here, Justin, next week on what happened, given both probably will have passed by the next time we record.
Yeah, I'm going to say a quick shout out for anybody that's listening live. SLU is up 1-0 still with 20 minutes to go at Herman. Turn it on ESPN Plus. Root on these boys and Coach Kalish. Let's keep them going in the postseason.
Roll Bills, baby. What a good way to end the show, Justin. Let's keep those good vibes running for SLU to advance to the A10 final, which will be, I believe, Justin, if I put it in here, right, I think it's on Sunday. If they are, but yeah, the final is 11/16, so that is Sunday, right? Yeah, 16th, yep. Sunday. If the Bills can win this against Davidson, they will play at noon on Sunday at home against the winner of Fordham and Dayton. So roll Bills, roll City, and roll the U.S. men's national team. We'll keep these topics and chats all plugging away for you all in this offseason, and appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you like the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you throw us a like down below. Make sure you're subscribed so you get all those videos dropped straight to your inbox when we do these and go live. And make sure you drop us your questions, your comments, your hot takes, things you want us to talk about on the next podcast. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know it's not City, but a lot of stuff going on. There will be more City stuff, I'm sure, very soon. And we'll be here to break it all down for you. So thanks for everyone for joining tonight. And in the meantime, all for City.
All for City.